Go ahead and buy the latte. Seriously. If you want the coffee, buy the coffee. For the last 20 years, financial gurus have been screaming at you that your $5 morning habit is the reason you aren't a millionaire yet. They tell you that if you just had the discipline to brew at home, you would be retiring on a yacht. I'm here to tell you that is mathematically false. It is a comforting lie that makes finance seem simple, but it is distracting you from the burning building that is the rest of your budget. While you are feeling guilty about $5, there are 3 massive expenses quietly draining thousands of dollars from your bank account every single month. Today, we are going to stop trying to drain the swimming pool with a teaspoon. We are going to look at the hose that is still running. I have run the numbers using the latest 2024 and 2025 data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the results are terrifyingly clear. We are going to prove, line by line, that cutting your coffee budget saves you about $1,000 a year, while optimizing just 3 specific categories can save you upwards of $20,000 a year, with arguably less daily willpower. We call them the Big 3: housing, transportation, and food. If you fix these, you win the game. If you ignore them, no amount of skipped coffees will save you. Before we dive into the spreadsheet that changes everything, do me a favor. If you want financial analysis that respects your intelligence instead of just shaming your caffeine habits, hit that subscribe button. It is the best return on investment you will get all day. Let's start with the myth itself, because it is important to understand why it is so popular. The Latte Factor was popularized years ago by David Bach. The premise is seductive in its simplicity. It suggests that small, habitual purchases, like a daily coffee, a pack of cigarettes, or a muffin, accumulate into massive missed opportunities over time. The idea is that we are bleeding wealth through 1,000 tiny cuts. And psychologically, this works on us because we see the coffee every day. It is a tangible, physical transaction. You hand over the card, you get the cup. It feels like spending. Paying your rent or your car insurance, on the other hand, usually happens automatically in the background. You don't feel that money leaving as acutely as you feel the $5 at the cafe. Here is the math they use to scare you. And, to be fair, the math isn't technically wrong. If you buy a $5 latte 5 days a week, that is $25 a week. Multiply that by 52 weeks, and you are looking at $1,300 a year. If you are a serious addict and go 7 days a week, you are pushing $1,800. The gurus then say, hey, if you invested that $1,500 a year at 7% interest for 30 years, you would have $142,000. That sounds huge, right? And strictly speaking, it is true. Compound interest is magic. If you cut the coffee and invest the difference, you will have more money. I am not disputing the calculator. I am disputing the scale. In the context of a modern budget, finding an extra $1,500 is nice, but it is not life-changing wealth anymore. It is a safety buffer, not a retirement plan. The real problem with the Latte Factor isn't the math. It is the moral judgment. It frames wealth as a test of pure discipline. It suggests that if you are broke, it is because you are weak for small pleasures. It turns financial literacy into a diet. And just like crash diets, purely restrictive budgets almost always fail. When you start your financial journey by denying yourself the one small thing that brings you joy at 8 a.m., you create resentment. You feel poor. You feel restricted. And when you feel restricted, you eventually binge. You skip the coffee for 3 weeks, save $60, and then, out of frustration, you blow $300 on a dinner or a gadget you don't need. It is penny wise and pound foolish. So, here is the protocol regarding the latte. Ignore it. For now. If you love the coffee, budget for the coffee. Treat it as a utility bill for your sanity. We are not going to get rich by depressing ourselves $5 at a time. We need to go hunting for the big game. We need to look at the expenses that don't cost you $5, but cost you $500 or $1,500 or $2,000 every single month. This is where the actual money is hiding. Imagine you are trying to empty a swimming pool. The latte factor is you, standing there with a teaspoon, frantically scooping water over the side. Meanwhile, there is a fire hose labelled housing and another hose labelled cars, pumping water into the pool at 1,000 gallons a minute. You can scoop as fast as you want with that spoon, but you are going to drown. We need to turn off the hoses. Let's look at where your money actually goes. If we take a look at the data from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics for 2024 and 2025, the picture is undeniable. In a typical household budget, 3 categories dominate everything else. We call them the Big Three: housing, transportation, and food. When you add these up, they account for roughly 63% of the average American's total spending. Think about that. Almost 2/3 of every dollar you earn vanishes into just 3 categories. The other 37% has to cover everything else: healthcare, entertainment, clothes, savings, and yes, your coffee. Let's put real dollar signs on this. According to the data, the average housing cost is around $2,189 a month. Transportation comes in second at about $1,110 a month. Food is third, sitting at roughly $847 a month. When you combine those, the average household is spending about $4,146 every single month just to exist. That is nearly $50,000 a year. Compare that to your coffee habit. Your latte is $1,800 a year. The big three are $50,000 a year. One is a rounding error, the other is your entire financial life. This is why the latte factor is a lie. It focuses your attention on the bottom 1% of your spending while ignoring the top 60%. It is like worrying about the aerodynamics of your side mirrors while you are driving a tank with a flat tire. If you can optimize the big three by even 10 or 20%, the savings are astronomical compared to cutting out small treats. You could buy a latte for everyone in your office every day and still come out ahead if you get your housing and car situation right. The strategy here is what I call one-time pain for permanent gain. Skipping a coffee requires willpower every single morning. You have to wake up and decide not to spend money. It is exhausting. Optimizing your housing or your car requires one big annoying decision: moving apartments, selling a vehicle, refinancing. But once it is done, you save that money automatically every month forever. You don't have to think about it. The savings just appear in your account. Let's break down exactly how to do this for each of the big three. Most people assume their rent or mortgage is a fixed number that cannot be changed. They say, well, I have to live somewhere. And that refusal to negotiate with your biggest expense is exactly why you feel broke, even when you get a raise. Housing is the monster line item. It is 15 times the cost of your coffee habit. If we don't fix this, nothing else matters. Housing is the big one. At roughly 33% of average spending, it consumes a third of your life's work. The average spend is nearly $2,200 a month. Now, I know what you are thinking. Rents are high. Interest rates are high. It is hard to find a cheap place. But the goal isn't to live in a box. The goal is to optimize. The standard advice is to spend no more than 30% of your income on housing. But if you can push that down to 20% or 25%, you unlock wealth at a speed that is hard to comprehend. Let's run a scenario. Suppose you are paying that average of $2,200 a month. You decide to downsize. Maybe you get a roommate. Maybe you move 20 minutes further out. Or maybe you just negotiate a harder lease on a slightly older building. You manage to cut your rent to $1,800. That is a $400 monthly saving. That is $4,800 a year. Right there, you have saved nearly 3 times the annual cost of a daily latte habit, just by signing a different piece of paper. If you can be more aggressive and save $600 a month, that is $7,200 a year. That is real money. Now, let's apply that compound interest magic the gurus love so much. If you take that $600 a month you saved on rent and invest it at 7%, over 10 years, you have an extra $100,000. Over 30 years, it grows to nearly $680,000. Just by living in a slightly cheaper apartment, you have effectively funded a huge chunk of your retirement. And the best part? You can still drink your coffee in that cheaper apartment. The math doesn't care about your caffeine, it cares about your rent check. So here is the action step. If your lease is coming up, or if you are looking to buy, do not max out your budget. Banks will tell you that you can afford a certain amount. Do not listen to them. Aim to spend 15 to 20% less than the maximum. Look for the good enough housing situation. Remember, a fancy apartment keeps you poor. An optimized apartment makes you rich. Nail this one expense and you can afford to be sloppy with almost everything else. If housing is the monster, transportation is the silent killer. It's the second biggest expense for most households, and it is arguably the dumbest one. Why? Because unlike a house, which might appreciate in value, everything you spend on a car is set on fire. The moment you buy a car, it starts losing money. And yet, we spend over $1,000 a month on them. Transportation costs average about $1,110 a month. That figure shocks people. You might think, my car payment is only $500. But you are forgetting the rest. That number includes fuel, insurance, maintenance, repairs, parking, and registration. It adds up fast. In many major metros, transportation costs are actually rivaling food costs. We have normalized the idea that 2 people need 2 brand new SUVs, and that normalization is costing us over $13,000 a year. Here is the optimization play. Let's say you have a $600 car payment. If you sell that car and buy a reliable used vehicle for cash, or a much smaller loan, you wipe out that $600 obligation. But you also drop your insurance premium because the car is worth less. You likely drop your registration fees. Total savings? Easily $400 a month. Combined with our housing savings, we are now looking at nearly $10,000 a year in kept cash. That is 5 times the Latte Factor, and all you did was drive a Honda instead of a Range Rover. The problem with cars is ego. We view our vehicle as a status symbol, an extension of our success. But from a wealth perspective, a car is just a tool to get you to the place where you make money. Every dollar you sink into a depreciating asset is a dollar that isn't working for you. Driving a paid-off car is one of the biggest flexes in personal finance because it frees up incredible amounts of cash flow. Nobody cares what you drive as much as you think they do. The protocol here is simple. Drive the cheapest, safe car you can tolerate. If you are a 2-car household, ask yourself honestly if you can survive with 1 car and a rideshare budget. If you can drop from 2 cars to 1, you save on insurance, maintenance, and depreciation instantly. If you must have a car, buy used, buy reliable, and drive it until the wheels fall off. That is how you win the transport game. We have covered housing and transport. Those are fixed costs. Once you sign the lease or buy the car, the number is set. But the third category, food, is the Wild West. This is the swing vote of your budget. It is the one place where you can bleed out $5 at a time or $500 at a time. And yes, this is where the latte actually lives. The average American spends about $847 a month on food. That splits into roughly $520 for groceries and $330 for dining out. This is 13% of the average budget. Now, unlike housing, you can't just sign a contract to lower this. You have to make decisions every day. But the latte factor obsession misses the forest for the trees here too. The danger isn't the $5 coffee. It is the $40 Tuesday night Uber Eats because you were too tired to cook. Optimizing food doesn't mean eating beans and rice. It means attacking the waste. If you cut your dining out budget by $150, that is basically one fewer restaurant meal a week, and tighten your grocery shopping to reduce waste by another $100, you save $250 a month. That is $3,000 a year. Notice something? That $3,000 is still double the savings of cutting your daily coffee. You can still have the coffee, just stop ordering the $40 delivery pizza. Food spending is emotional. We spend on food when we are stressed, tired, or celebrating. The key is to separate fuel from entertainment. Groceries are fuel. Restaurants are entertainment. If you treat dining out like a ticket to a concert, something you budget for and enjoy intentionally, you stop leaking money. But if you treat dining out as a default because you didn't plan dinner, that is where the budget dies. It is about intentionality, not deprivation. The fix? Meal plan. I know, it sounds boring, but knowing what you are going to eat on Tuesday prevents the emergency takeout order. Cap your restaurant visits to once or twice a week. And yes, buy the coffee if you want it, but maybe make breakfast at home. That trade-off alone saves you $10 a day without the caffeine withdrawal. So we have talked about the big three separately. Now I want to put them all together on screen. I want to show you exactly what happens over 10 years when you choose the latte deprivation strategy versus the big three optimization strategy. The difference is not just a few dollars. It is the difference between a used Honda and a house. Scenario A. You listen to the gurus. You cut the latte. You save $1,500 a year. You invest it at 7%. After 10 years, you have about $20,700. That is good. I will never say 20 grand is bad money. It is a nice emergency fund, maybe a down payment on a very cheap car. But it took 10 years of denying yourself a daily pleasure. It took 3,650 mornings of saying no to yourself. Scenario B. You ignore the latte advice. You drink the coffee. But you optimize the big three. You save $5,000 a year on housing by moving or getting a roommate. You save $2,000 a year on transport by ditching the car payment. You save $2,000 a year on food by cooking more. That is $9,000 a year in savings. Over 10 years, at 7%, that grows to over $124,000. That is 6 times the result of the latte strategy. Push that to 20 years, and the big three strategy gets you nearly $400,000. The latte strategy? Barely $60,000. The gap is enormous. This is why I say the latte factor is a lie. It pretends that small sacrifices lead to wealth, when in reality, big structural decisions are the only things that move the needle. You cannot budget your way to $1 million, $5 at a time. You have to make the big moves. This brings us to the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. 80% of your financial success comes from 20% of your decisions. Those decisions are where you live, what you drive, and how you eat. Everything else, your Netflix subscription, your coffee, your brand of toothpaste, is the other 80% of decisions that only give you 20% of the results. Stop sweating the small stuff until you have fixed the big stuff. Here is your permission slip. Go buy the latte. Enjoy it. But while you are drinking it, open up your bank statement and look at the big three. If your rent is 50% of your income, move. If your car payment is crippling you, sell it. If you are eating out 5 nights a week, learn to cook. These are hard choices, I know. They are much harder than skipping a coffee. But that is exactly why they work. They are the high leverage moves that actually change your life. I want to know where you stand. Are you a Latte Factor believer? Or are you Team Big Three? Drop a comment below with your biggest monthly expense. I'm betting it is housing. And let me know one way you plan to attack it this year. If this video helped you stop feeling guilty and start building wealth, hit the like button and subscribe for more no-nonsense money talks. I'm Tom, and I will see you in the next one.